London is the capital and largest city of England and the United Kingdom. Standing on the River Thames in the southeast of England, at the head of its 50-mile, 80 kilometers, estuary leading to the North Sea, London has been a major settlement for 2 millennia. Londinium was founded by the Romans. The City of London, London's ancient core minus an area of just 1.12 square miles, 2.9 square kilometers, and colloquially known as the square mile minus retains boundaries that follow closely its medieval limits. The City of Westminster is also an Inner London borough holding city status. Greater London is governed by the Mayor of London and the London Assembly. London is considered to be one of the world's most important global cities and has been termed the world's most powerful, most desirable, most influential, most visited, most expensive, innovative, sustainable, most investment-friendly, and most popular for work city in the world. London exerts a considerable impact upon the arts, commerce, education, entertainment, fashion, finance, healthcare, media, professional services, research and development, tourism and transportation. London ranks 26 out of 300 major cities for economic performance. It is one of the largest financial centers and has either the 5th or 6th largest metropolitan area GDP. It is the most visited city as measured by international arrivals and has the busiest city airport system as measured by passenger traffic. It is the leading investment destination, hosting more international retailers and ultra-high net worth individuals than any other city. London's universities form the largest concentration of higher education institutes in Europe, and is home of world-class institutions such as Imperial College London in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and the London School of Economics in economics, finance, and business. In 2012, London became the first city to have hosted 3 modern Summer Olympic Games. London has a diverse range of people and cultures, and more than 300 languages are spoken in the region. Its estimated mid-2018 municipal population, corresponding to Greater London, was 8,908,081, the most populous of any city in the European Union and accounting for 13.4% of the UK population. London's urban area is the second most populous in the EU, after Paris, with 9,787,426 inhabitants at the 2011 census. The population within the London commuter belt is the most populous in the EU with 14,040,163 inhabitants in 2016. London was the world's most populous city from circa 1831 to 1925. London contains 4 World Heritage Sites, the Tower of London, Kew Gardens, the site comprising the Palace of Westminster, Westminster Abbey, and St Margaret's Church, and the historic settlement in Greenwich where the Royal Observatory, Greenwich defines the prime meridian, 0 degrees longitude, and Greenwich Mean Time. Other landmarks include Buckingham Palace, the London Eye, Piccadilly Circus, St Paul's Cathedral, Tower Bridge, Trafalgar Square, and the Shard. London has numerous museums, galleries, libraries and sporting events. These include the British Museum, National Gallery, National History Museum, Tate Modern, British Library and West End Theatres. The London Underground is the oldest underground railway network in the world. Toponymy. London is an ancient name, attested already in the 1st century usually in the Latinized form Londinium, for example, handwritten Roman tablets recovered in the city originating from AD 65-70 AD include the word Londinio, in London. Over the years, the name has attracted many mythicizing explanations. The earliest attested appears in Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae, written around 1136. This had it that the name originated from a supposed King Liud, who had allegedly taken over the city and named it Caerliud. Modern scientific analyses of the name must account for the origins of the different forms found in early sources: Latin, usually Londinium, Old English, usually London, and Welsh, usually Londane, with reference to the known developments over time of sounds in those different languages. It is agreed that the name came into these languages from Common Brittonic, Recent work tends to reconstruct the lost Celtic form of the name as London John, or something similar. This was adapted into Latin as Londinium and borrowed into Old English, the ancestor language of English. The toponymy of the common Brittonic form is much debated. A prominent explanation was Richard Coates's 1998 argument that the name derived from pre-Celtic Old European, Pilo Oneida, meaning river too wide to ford. Coates suggested that this was a name given to the part of the River Thames which flows through London. From this, the settlement gained the Celtic form of its name, Lowonidan John. However, most work has accepted a Celtic origin for the name, and recent studies have favored an explanation along the lines of a Celtic derivative of a Proto-Indo-European root lind, sink, cause to sink, combined with the Celtic suffix "-nyo oranjo, used to form place names. Peter Schreiber has specifically suggested, on these grounds, that the name originally meant place that floods, periodically, tidally. Until 1889, the name London applied to the City of London, but since then it has also referred to the County of London and Greater London. London is sometimes written informally as LDN. History. Prehistory. In 1993, the remains of a Bronze Age bridge were found on the south foreshore, upstream of Vauxhall Bridge. This bridge either crossed the Thames or reached a now lost highland in it. Two of those timbers were radiocarbon dated to between 1750 BC and 1285 BC. In 2010, the foundations of a large timber structure, dated to between 4800 BC and 4500 BC, were found on the Thames's south foreshore, downstream of Vauxhall Bridge. The function of the Mesolithic structure is not known. Both structures are on the south bank where the River Aire flows into the Thames. Roman London. Although there is evidence of scattered Brittonic settlements in the area, the first major settlement was founded by the Romans about 4 years after the invasion of AD 43. This lasted only until around AD 61, when the Iceni tribe led by Queen Boudicca stormed it, burning it to the ground. The next, heavily planned, incarnation of Londinium prospered, and it superseded Colchester as the capital of the Roman province of Britannia in 100. At its height in the 2nd century, Roman London had a population of around 60,000. Anglo-Saxon and Viking period London. With the collapse of Roman rule in the early 5th century, London ceased to be a capital, and the walled city of Londinium was effectively abandoned, although Roman civilization continued in the area of St. Martin in the Fields until around 450. From around 500, an Anglo-Saxon settlement known as Londinic developed slightly west of the old Roman city. By about 680, the city had regrown into a major port, although there is little evidence of large-scale production. From the 820s, repeated Viking assaults brought decline. 3 are recorded, those in 851 and 886 succeeded, while the last, in 994, was rebuffed. The Vikings established Danelaw over much of eastern and northern England. Its boundary stretched roughly from London to Chester. It was an area of political and geographical control imposed by the Viking incursions, which was formally agreed by the Danish warlord, Guthrum, and the West Saxon king Alfred the Great in 886. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle recorded that Alfred refounded London in 886. Archaeological research shows that this involved abandonment of Londinic and a revival of life and trade within the old Roman walls. London then grew slowly until about 950, after which activity increased dramatically. By the 11th century, London was beyond all comparison the largest town in England. Westminster Abbey, rebuilt in the Romanesque style by King Edward the Confessor, was one of the grandest churches in Europe. Winchester had previously been the capital of Anglo-Saxon England, but from this time on, London became the main forum for foreign traders and the base for defense in time of war. In the view of Frank Stenton, it had the resources, and it was rapidly developing the dignity and the political self-consciousness appropriate to a national capital. Middle Ages. After winning the Battle of Hastings, William, Duke of Normandy, was crowned King of England in the newly completed Westminster Abbey on Christmas Day 1066. William constructed the Tower of London, the first of the many Norman castles in England to be rebuilt in stone, in the southeastern corner of the city, to intimidate the native inhabitants. In 1097, William II began the building of Westminster Hall, close by the abbey of the same name. The hall became the basis of a new Palace of Westminster. In the 12th century, the institutions of central government, which had hitherto accompanied the Royal English court as it moved around the country, grew in size and sophistication and became increasingly fixed in one place. For most purposes this was Westminster, although the royal treasury, having been moved from Winchester, came to rest in the Tower. While the city of Westminster developed into a true capital in governmental terms, its distinct neighbour, the City of London, remained England's largest city and principal commercial centre, and it flourished under its own unique administration, the Corporation of London. In 1100, its population was around 18,000, by 1300 it had grown to nearly 100,000. Disaster struck in the form of the Black Death in the mid-14th century, when London lost nearly a third of its population. London was the focus of the Peasants' Revolt in 1381. London was also a centre of England's Jewish population before their expulsion by Edward I in 1290. Violence against Jews took place in 1190, after it was rumoured that the new king had ordered their massacre after they had presented themselves at his coronation. In 1264, during the Second Barons' War, Simon de Montfort's rebels killed 500 Jews while attempting to seize records of debts. Early modern. During the Tudor period, the Reformation produced a gradual shift to Protestantism, and much of London property passed from church to private ownership, which accelerated trade and business in the city. In 1475, the Hanseatic League set up its main trading base, Conter, of England in London, called the Stalauf or Steel Yard. It existed until 1853, when the Hanseatic cities of Lübeck, Bremen and Hamburg sold the property to Southeastern Railway. Woolen cloth was shipped undyed and undressed from 14th/15th century London to the nearby shores of the Low Countries, where it was considered indispensable. But the reach of English maritime enterprise hardly extended beyond the seas of northwest Europe. The commercial route to Italy and the Mediterranean Sea normally lay through Antwerp and over the Alps. Any ships passing through the Strait of Gibraltar to or from England were likely to be Italian or Ragusan. Upon the reopening of the Netherlands to English shipping in January 1565, there ensued a strong outburst of commercial activity. The Royal Exchange was founded. Mercantilism grew, and monopoly trading companies such as the East India Company were established, with trade expanding to the New World. London became the principal North Sea port, with migrants arriving from England and abroad. The population rose from an estimated 50,000 in 1530 to about 225,000 in 1605. In the 16th century, William Shakespeare and his contemporaries lived in London at a time of hostility to the development of the theatre. By the end of the Tudor period in 1603, London was still very compact. There was an assassination attempt on James I in Westminster, in the Gunpowder Plot on November 5, 1605. In 1637, the government of Charles I attempted to reform administration in the area of London. The plan called for the corporation of the city to extend its jurisdiction and administration over expanding areas around the city. Fearing an attempt by the Crown to diminish the liberties of London, a lack of interest in administering these additional areas, or concerned by city guilds of having to share power, the corporation refused. Later called the Great Refusal, this decision largely continues to account for the unique governmental status of the city. In the English Civil War, the majority of Londoners supported the parliamentary cause. After an initial advance by the Royalists in 1642, culminating in the battles of Brentford and Turnham Green, London was surrounded by a defensive perimeter wall known as the Lines of Communication. The lines were built by up to 20,000 people, and were completed in under 2 months. The fortifications failed their only test when the New Model Army entered London in 1647, and they were levelled by Parliament the same year. London was plagued by disease in the early 17th century, culminating in the Great Plague of 1665 to 1666, which killed up to 100,000 people, or a fifth of the population. The Great Fire of London broke out in 1666 in Pudding Lane in the city and quickly swept through the wooden buildings. Rebuilding took over 10 years and was supervised by Robert Hooke as Surveyor of London. In 1708 Christopher Wren's masterpiece, St. Paul's Cathedral was completed. During the Georgian era, new districts such as Mayfair were formed in the west. New bridges over the Thames encouraged development in South London. In the east, the Port of London expanded downstream. London's development as an international financial centre matured for much of the 1700s. In 1762, George III acquired Buckingham House and it was enlarged over the next 75 years. During the 18th century, London was dogged by crime, and the Bow Street Runners were established in 1750 as a professional police force. In total, more than 200 offences were punishable by death, including petty theft. Most children born in the city died before reaching their third birthday. The coffee house became a popular place to debate ideas, with growing literacy and the development of the printing press making news widely available, and Fleet Street became the centre of the British press. Following the invasion of Amsterdam by Napoleonic armies, many financiers relocated to London, especially a large Jewish community, and the first London International issue was arranged in 1817. Around the same time, the Royal Navy became the world-leading war fleet, acting as a serious deterrent to potential economic adversaries of the United Kingdom. The repeal of the Corn Laws in 1846 was specifically aimed at weakening Dutch economic power. London then overtook Amsterdam as the leading international financial centre. In 1888, London became home to a series of murders by a man known only as Jack the Ripper, and it has since become one of the world's most famous unsolved mysteries. According to Samuel Johnson, you find no man, at all intellectual, who is willing to leave London. No, sir, when a man is tired of London, he is tired of life, for there is in London all that life can afford. Late modern and contemporary. London was the world's largest city from circa 1831 to 1925. London's overcrowded conditions led to cholera epidemics, claiming 14,000 lives in 1848, and 6,000 in 1866. Rising traffic congestion led to the creation of the world's first local urban rail network. The Metropolitan Board of Works oversaw infrastructure expansion in the capital and some of the surrounding counties. It was abolished in 1889 when the London County Council was created out of those areas of the counties surrounding the capital. London was bombed by the Germans during the First World War, and during the Second World War, the Blitz and other bombings by the German Luftwaffe killed over 30,000 Londoners, destroying large tracts of housing and other buildings across the city. Immediately after the war, the 1948 Summer Olympics were held at the original Wembley Stadium, at a time when London was still recovering from the war. From the 1940s onwards, London became home to many immigrants, primarily from Commonwealth countries such as Jamaica, India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, making London one of the most diverse cities worldwide. In 1951, the Festival of Britain was held on the South Bank. The Great Smog of 1952 led to the Clean Air Act 1956, which ended the pea soup fogs for which London had been notorious. Primarily starting in the mid-1960s, London became a centre for the worldwide youth culture, exemplified by the swinging London subculture associated with the King's Road, Chelsea, and Carnaby Street. The role of trendsetter was revived during the punk era. In 1965, London's political boundaries were expanded to take into account the growth of the urban area and a new Greater London Council was created. During the Troubles in Northern Ireland, London was subjected to bombing attacks by the Provisional Irish Republican Army for 2 decades, starting with the Old Bailey bombing in 1973. Racial inequality was highlighted by the 1981 Brixton riot. Greater London's population declined steadily in the decades after the Second World War, from an estimated peak of 8.6 million in 1939 to around 6.8 million in the 1980s. The principal ports for London moved downstream to Felixstowe and Tilbury, with the London Docklands area becoming a focus for regeneration, including the Canary Wharf development. This was born out of London's ever-increasing role as a major international financial centre during the 1980s. The Thames Barrier was completed in the 1980s to protect London against tidal surges from the North Sea. The Greater London Council was abolished in 1986, which left London without a central administration until 2000, when London-wide government was restored, with the creation of the Greater London Authority. To celebrate the start of the 21st century, the Millennium Dome, London Eye and Millennium Bridge were constructed. On July 6, 2005, London was awarded the 2012 Summer Olympics, making London the first city to stage the Olympic Games 3 times. On July 7, 2005, 3 London Underground trains and a double-decker bus were bombed in a series of terrorist attacks. In 2008, Time named London alongside New York City and Hong Kong as Nilkong, hailing it as the world's 3 most influential global cities. In January 2015, Greater London's population was estimated to be 8.63 million, the highest level since 1939. During the Brexit referendum in 2016, the UK as a whole decided to leave the European Union, but a majority of London constituencies voted to remain in the EU. Administration. Local government. The administration of London is formed of 2 tiers, a citywide, strategic tier and a local tier. Citywide administration is coordinated by the Greater London Authority, GLA, while local administration is carried out by 33 smaller authorities. The GLA consists of 2 elected components, the Mayor of London, who has executive powers, and the London Assembly, which scrutinises the mayor's decisions and can accept or reject the mayor's budget proposals each year. The headquarters of the GLA is City Hall, Southwark. The mayor since 2016 has been Sadiq Khan, the first Muslim mayor of a major Western capital. The mayor's statutory planning strategy is published as the London Plan, which was most recently revised in 2011. The local authorities are the councils of the 32 London boroughs and the City of London Corporation. They are responsible for most local services, such as local planning, schools, social services, local roads and refuse collection. Certain functions, such as waste management, are provided through joint arrangements. In 2009 to 2010, the combined revenue expenditure by London councils and the GLA amounted to just over £22 billion. £14.7 billion for the boroughs and £7.4 billion for the GLA. The London Fire Brigade is the statutory fire and rescue service for Greater London. It is run by the London Fire and Emergency Planning Authority and is the 3rd largest fire service in the world. National Health Service ambulance services are provided by the London Ambulance Service, LAS, NHS Trust, the largest free at the point of use emergency ambulance service in the world. The London Air Ambulance Charity operates in conjunction with the laws where required. Her Majesty's Coast Guard and the Royal National Lifeboat Institution operate on the River Thames, which is under the jurisdiction of the Port of London Authority from Teddington Lock to the sea. National Government. London is the seat of the Government of the United Kingdom. Many government departments, as well as the Prime Minister's residence at 10 Downing Street, are based close to the Palace of Westminster, particularly along Whitehall. The British Parliament is often referred to as the Mother of Parliaments, although this sobriquet was first applied to England itself, and not to Westminster, by John Bright, because it has been a model for many other parliamentary systems. There are 73 members of Parliament, MPs, from London, elected from local parliamentary constituencies in the National Parliament. As of May 2015, 49 are from the Labour Party, 21 are Conservatives, and 3 are Liberal Democrat. The UK government ministerial post of Minister for London was created in 1994 and currently occupied by Nick Hurd. Policing and crime. Policing in Greater London, with the exception of the City of London, is provided by the Metropolitan Police Service, overseen by the Mayor through the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime, MOPAC. The City of London has its own police force, the City of London Police. The British Transport Police are responsible for police services on National Rail, London Underground, Docklands Light Railway and Tramlink services. A fourth police force in London, the Ministry of Defense Police, do not generally become involved with policing the general public. Crime rates vary widely by area, ranging from parts with serious issues to parts considered very safe. Today crime figures are made available nationally at local authority and ward level. In 2015 there were 118 homicides, a 25.5% increase over 2014. The Metropolitan Police have made detailed crime figures, broken down by category at borough and ward level, available on their website since 2000. Recorded crime has been rising in London, notably violent crime and murder by stabbing and other means have risen. There have been 50 murders from the start of 2018 to mid-April 2018. Funding cuts to police in London are likely to have contributed to this, though other factors are also involved. Geography. Scope. London, also referred to as Greater London, is one of 9 regions of England and the top-level subdivision covering most of the city's metropolis. The small ancient city of London at its core once comprised the whole settlement, but as its urban area grew, the Corporation of London resisted attempts to amalgamate the city with its suburbs, causing London to be defined in a number of ways for different purposes. 40% of Greater London is covered by the London Post Town, within which London forms part of postal addresses. The London telephone area code, 020, covers a larger area, similar in size to Greater London, although some outer districts are excluded and some places just outside are included. The Greater London boundary has been aligned to the M25 motorway in places. Outward urban expansion is now prevented by the Metropolitan Green Belt, although the built-up area extends beyond the boundary in places, resulting in a separately defined Greater London urban area. Beyond this is the vast London commuter belt. Greater London is split for some purposes into Inner London and Outer London. The city is split by the River Thames into North and South, with an informal Central London area in its interior. The coordinates of the nominal centre of London, traditionally considered to be the original Eleanor Cross at Charing Cross near the junction of Trafalgar Square and Whitehall, are about 51 degrees 3026 in 00 degrees 0739 W. However, the geographical centre of London, on one definition, is in the London Borough of Lambeth, just 0.1 miles to the northeast of Lambeth North Tube Station. Status. Within London, both the City of London and the City of Westminster have city status, and both the City of London and the remainder of Greater London are counties for the purposes of lieutenancies. The area of Greater London includes areas that are part of the historic counties of Middlesex, Kent, Surrey, Essex, and Hertfordshire. London's status as the capital of England, and later the United Kingdom, has never been granted or confirmed officially, by statute or in written form. Its position was formed through constitutional convention, making its status as de facto capital a part of the UK's uncodified constitution. The capital of England was moved to London from Winchester as the Palace of Westminster developed in the 12th and 13th centuries to become the permanent location of the royal court, and thus the political capital of the nation. More recently, Greater London has been defined as a region of England and in this context is known as London. Topography. Greater London encompasses a total area of 1,583 square kilometers, 611 square miles, an area which had a population of 7,172,036 in 2001 and a population density of 4,542 inhabitants per square kilometer, 11,760 per square mile. The extended area known as the London Metropolitan Region or the London Metropolitan Agglomeration, comprises a total area of 8,382 square kilometers, 3,236 square miles, has a population of 13,709,000 and a population density of 1,510 inhabitants per square kilometer, 3,900 per square mile. Modern London stands on the Thames, its primary geographical feature, a navigable river which crosses the city from the southwest to the east. The Thames Valley is a floodplain surrounded by gently rolling hills including Parliament Hill, Addington Hills, and Primrose Hill. Historically, London grew up at the lowest bridging point on the Thames. The Thames was once a much broader, shallower river with extensive marshlands. At high tide, its shores reached 5 times their present width. Since the Victorian era, the Thames has been extensively embanked, and many of its London tributaries now flow underground. The Thames is a tidal river, and London is vulnerable to flooding. The threat has increased over time because of a slow but continuous rise in high water level by the slow tilting of the British Isles, up in Scotland and Northern Ireland and down in southern parts of England, Wales and Ireland, caused by post-glacial rebound. In 1974, a decade of work began on the construction of the Thames Barrier across the Thames at Woolwich to deal with this threat. While the barrier is expected to function as designed until roughly 2070, concepts for its future enlargement or redesign are already being discussed. Climate. London has a temperate oceanic climate, Köppen, CFB, receiving less precipitation than Rome, Bordeaux, Lisbon, Naples, Sydney or New York City. Temperature extremes in London range from 38.1 degrees Celsius, 100.6 degrees Fahrenheit, at Kew during August 2003 down to -21.1 degrees Celsius, -6.0 degrees Fahrenheit. However, an unofficial reading of -24 degrees Celsius, -11 degrees Fahrenheit, was reported on January 3, 1740. Conversely, the highest unofficial temperature ever known to be recorded in the United Kingdom occurred in London in the 1808 heatwave. The temperature was recorded at 105 degrees Fahrenheit, 40.6 degrees Celsius, on 13th of July. It is thought that this temperature, if accurate, is one of the highest temperatures of the millennium in the United Kingdom. It is thought that only days in 1513 and 1707 could have beaten this. Since records began in London, first at Greenwich in 1841, the warmest month on record is July 1868, with a mean temperature of 22.5 degrees Celsius, 72.5 degrees Fahrenheit, at Greenwich, whereas the coldest month is December 2010, with a mean temperature of -6.7 degrees Celsius, 19.9 degrees Fahrenheit, at Northolt. Summers are generally warm, sometimes hot. London's average July high is 24 degrees Celsius, 74 degrees Fahrenheit. On average each year, London experiences 31 days above 25 degrees Celsius, 77.0 degrees Fahrenheit, and 4.2 days above 30.0 degrees Celsius, 86.0 degrees Fahrenheit, every year. During the 2003 European heatwave there were 14 consecutive days above 30 degrees Celsius, 86.0 degrees Fahrenheit, and 2 consecutive days when temperatures reached 38 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, leading to hundreds of heat-related deaths. There was also a previous spell of 15 consecutive days above 32.2 degrees Celsius, 90.0 degrees Fahrenheit, in 1976, which also caused many heat-related deaths. The previous record high was 38 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, in August 1911 at the Greenwich station. Droughts can also, occasionally, be a problem, especially in summer. Most recently in summer 2018 and with much drier than average conditions prevailing from May to December. However, the most consecutive days without rain was 73 days in the spring of 1893. Winters are generally cool with little temperature variation. Heavy snow is rare, but snow usually happens at least once each winter. Spring and autumn can be pleasant. As a large city, London has a considerable urban heat island effect, making the center of London at times 5 degrees Celsius, 9 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than the suburbs and outskirts. This can be seen below when comparing London Heathrow, 15 miles, 24 kilometers, west of London, with the London Weather Centre. Although London and the British Isles have a reputation of frequent rainfall, London's average of 602 mm, 23.7 in, of precipitation annually actually makes it drier than the global average. The absence of heavy winter rainfall leads to many climates around the Mediterranean having more annual precipitation than London. Districts. London's vast urban area is often described using a set of district names, such as Bloomsbury, Mayfair, Wembley, and Whitechapel. These are either informal designations, reflect the names of villages that have been absorbed by sprawl, or are superseded administrative units such as parishes or former boroughs. Such names have remained in use through tradition, each referring to a local area with its own distinctive character, but without official boundaries. Since 1965, Greater London has been divided into 32 London boroughs in addition to the ancient City of London. The City of London is the main financial district, and Canary Wharf has recently developed into a new financial and commercial hub in the Docklands to the east. The West End is London's main entertainment and shopping district, attracting tourists. West London includes expensive residential areas where properties can sell for tens of millions of pounds. The average price for properties in Kensington and Chelsea is over £2 million, with a similarly high outlay in most of central London. The East End is the area closest to the original Port of London, known for its high immigrant population, as well as for being one of the poorest areas in London. The surrounding East London area saw much of London's early industrial development. Now, brownfield sites throughout the area are being redeveloped as part of the Thames Gateway, including the London Riverside and Lower Lee Valley, which was developed into the Olympic Park for the 2012 Olympics and Paralympics. Architecture. London's buildings are too diverse to be characterized by any particular architectural style, partly because of their varying ages. Many grand houses and public buildings, such as the National Gallery, are constructed from Portland stone. Some areas of the city, particularly those just west of the center, are characterized by white stucco or whitewashed buildings. Few structures in central London predate the Great Fire of 1666, these being a few trace Roman remains, the Tower of London, and a few scattered Tudor survivors in the city. Further out is, for example, the Tudor period Hampton Court Palace, England's oldest surviving Tudor palace, built by Cardinal Thomas Wolsey circa 1515. Part of the varied architectural heritage are the 17th century churches Byron, neoclassical financial institutions such as the Royal Exchange and the Bank of England, to the early 20th century Old Bailey and the 1960s Barbican Estate. The disused, but soon to be rejuvenated, 1939 Battersea Power Station by the river in the southwest is a local landmark, while some railway termini are excellent examples of Victorian architecture, most notably St Pancras and Paddington. The density of London varies, with high employment density in the central area and Canary Wharf, high residential densities in inner London, and lower densities in outer London. The monument in the City of London provides views of the surrounding area while commemorating the Great Fire of London, which originated nearby. Marble Arch and Wellington Arch, at the north and south ends of Park Lane, respectively, have royal connections, as do the Albert Memorial and Royal Albert Hall in Kensington. Nelson's Column is a nationally recognized monument in Trafalgar Square, one of the focal points of central London. Older buildings are mainly brick-built, most commonly the yellow London stock brick or warm orange red variety, often decorated with carvings and white plaster moldings. In the dense areas, most of the concentration is via medium and high-rise buildings. London's skyscrapers, such as 30 St Mary Axe, Tower 42, the Broadgate Tower and 1 Canada Square, are mostly in the two financial districts, the City of London and Canary Wharf. High-rise development is restricted at certain sites if it would obstruct protected views of St Paul's Cathedral and other historic buildings. Nevertheless, there are a number of tall skyscrapers in central London. See tall buildings in London, including the 95-story Shard London Bridge, the tallest building in the European Union. Other notable modern buildings include City Hall in Southwark with its distinctive oval shape, the Art Deco BBC Broadcasting House plus the postmodernist British Library in Somers Town, King's Cross and No One Poultry by James Stirling. What was formerly the Millennium Dome, by the Thames to the east of Canary Wharf, is now an entertainment venue called the O2 Arena. Cityscape. National history. The London Natural History Society suggests that London is one of the world's greenest cities with more than 40% green space or open water. They indicate that 2,000 species of flowering plant have been found growing there and that the tidal Thames supports 120 species of fish. They also state that over 60 species of bird nest in central London and that their members have recorded 47 species of butterfly, 1,173 moths and more than 270 kinds of spider around London. London's wetland areas support nationally important populations of many water birds. London has 38 sites of special scientific interest, SSSIs, 2 national nature reserves and 76 local nature reserves. Amphibians are common in the capital, including smooth newts living by the Tate Modern, and common frogs, common toads, palmate newts and great crested newts. On the other hand, native reptiles such as slow worms, common lizards, grass snakes and adders, are mostly only seen in outer London. Among other inhabitants of London are 10,000 red foxes, so that there are now 16 foxes for every square mile, 2.6 square kilometers, of London. These urban foxes are noticeably bolder than their country cousins, sharing the pavement with pedestrians and raising cubs in people's backyards. Foxes have even sneaked into the Houses of Parliament, where one was found asleep on a filing cabinet. Another broke into the grounds of Buckingham Palace, reportedly killing some of Queen Elizabeth II's prized pink flamingos. Generally, however, foxes and city folk appear to get along. A survey in 2001 by the London-based Mammal Society found that 80% of 3,779 respondents who volunteered to keep a diary of garden mammal visits liked having them around. This sample cannot be taken to represent Londoners as a whole. Other mammals found in Greater London are hedgehogs, rats, mice, rabbit, shrew, vole, and squirrels. In wilder areas of outer London, such as Epping Forest, a wide variety of mammals are found, including hare, badger, field, bank and water vole, wood mouse, yellow-necked mouse, mole, shrew, and weasel, in addition to fox, squirrel and hedgehog. A dead otter was found at the highway, in Wapping, about a mile from the Tower Bridge, which it would suggest that they have begun to move back after being absent 100 years from the city. 10 of England's 18 species of bats have been recorded in Epping Forest: soprano, Nathusius and common pipistrelles, noctiole, serotine, barbastile, daubentons, brown long-eared, natterers and lilslers. Among the strange sights seen in London have been a whale in the Thames, while the BBC Two programme Natural World, a national history of London shows pigeons using the London Underground to get around the city, a seal that takes fish from fishmongers outside Billingsgate Fish Market, and foxes that will sit if given sausages. Herds of red and fallow deer also roam freely within much of Richmond and Bushy Park. A cull takes place each November and February to ensure numbers can be sustained. Epping Forest is also known for its fallow deer, which can frequently be seen in herds to the north of the forest. A rare population of melanistic, black fallow deer is also maintained at the deer sanctuary near Theddon Bois. Muntjac deer, which escaped from deer parks at the turn of the 20th century, are also found in the forest. While Londoners are accustomed to wildlife such as birds and foxes sharing the city, more recently urban deer have started becoming a regular feature, and whole herds of fallow deer come into residential areas at night to take advantage of London's green spaces. Demography. The 2011 census recorded that 2,998,264 people, or 36.7% of London's population, are foreign-born, making London the city with the second largest immigrant population, behind New York City, in terms of absolute numbers. About 69% of children born in London in 2015 had at least one parent who was born abroad. The table to the right shows the most common countries of birth of London residents. Note that some of the German-born population, in 18th position, are British citizens from birth born to parents serving in the British Armed Forces in Germany. With increasing industrialization, London's population grew rapidly throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, and it was for some time in the late 19th and early 20th centuries the most populous city in the world. Its population peaked at 8,615,245 in 1939, immediately before the outbreak of the Second World War, but had declined to 7,192,091 at the 2001 census. However, the population then grew by just over a million between the 2001 and 2011 censuses, to reach 8,173,941 in the latter enumeration. However, London's continuous urban area extends beyond the borders of Greater London and was home to 9,787,426 people in 2011, while its wider metropolitan area has a population of between 12 and 14 million depending on the definition used. According to Eurostat, London is the most populous city and metropolitan area of the European Union and the second most populous in Europe. During the period 1991 to 2001, 726,000 immigrants arrived in London. The region covers an area of 1,579 square kilometers, 610 square miles. The population density is 5,177 inhabitants per square kilometer, 13,410 per square mile, more than 10 times that of any other British region. In terms of population, London is the 19th largest city and the 18th largest metropolitan region. Age structure and median age. In 2018, London's population by age is structured differently to the rest of England's. London has a higher proportion of children under the age of 5 than the rest of England. The children, aged younger than 14 years, constitutes a 21% in Outer London, and 28% in Inner London. The age group aged between 15 and 24 years are 12% in both Outer and Inner London, those aged between 25 and 44 years are 31% in Outer London and 40% in Inner London. The age between 45 and 64 years formed the 26 and 21% in Outer and Inner London respectively, while in Outer London the aged 65 and older were the 13%, in Inner London were just the 9%. The median age of London in 2017 is 36.5 years old. Ethnic groups. According to the Office for National Statistics, based on the 2011 census estimates, 59.8% of the 8,173,941 inhabitants of London were white, with 44.9% white British, 2.2% white Irish, 0.1% Gypsy, Irish traveller and 12.1% classified as other white. 20.9% of Londoners are of Asian and mixed Asian descent. 19.7% are of full Asian descent, with those of mixed Asian heritage comprising 1.2% of the population. Indians account for 6.6% of the population, followed by Pakistanis and Bangladeshis at 2.7% each. Chinese peoples account for 1.5% of the population, with Arabs comprising 1.3%. A further 4.9% are classified as other Asian. 15.6% of London's population are of black and mixed black descent. 13.3% are of full black descent, with those of mixed black heritage comprising 2.3%. Black Africans account for 7.0% of London's population, with 4.2% as Black Caribbean and 2.1% as other black. 5.0% are of mixed race. Across London, Black and Asian children outnumber white British children by about 6 to 4 in state schools. Altogether at the 2011 census, of London's 1,624,768 population aged 0 to 15, 46.4% were white, 19.8% were Asian, 19% were black, 10.8% were mixed and 4% represented another ethnic group. In January 2005, a survey of London's ethnic and religious diversity claimed that there were more than 300 languages spoken in London and more than 50 non-Indigenous communities with a population of more than 10,000. Figures from the Office for National Statistics show that, in 2010, London's foreign-born population was 2,650,000, 33%, up from 1,630,000 in 1997. The 2011 census shows that 36.7% of Greater London's population were born outside the UK. A portion of the German-born population are likely to be British nationals born to parents serving in the British Armed Forces in Germany. Estimates produced by the Office for National Statistics indicate that the 5 largest foreign-born groups living in London in the period July 2009 to June 2010 were those born in India, Poland, the Republic of Ireland, Bangladesh, and Nigeria. Religion. According to the 2011 census, the largest religious groupings are Christians, 48.4%, followed by those of no religion, 20.7%, Muslims, 12.4%, no response, 8.5%, Hindus, 5.0%, Jews, 1.8%, Sikhs, 1.5%, Buddhists, 1.0%, and other, 0.6%. London has traditionally been Christian, and has a large number of churches, particularly in the City of London. The well-known St. Paul's Cathedral in the city and Southwark Cathedral south of the river are Anglican administrative centres, while the Archbishop of Canterbury, Principal Bishop of the Church of England and Worldwide Anglican Communion, has his main residence at Lambeth Palace in the London Borough of Lambeth. Important national and royal ceremonies are shared between St. Paul's and Westminster Abbey. The Abbey is not to be confused with nearby Westminster Cathedral, which is the largest Roman Catholic cathedral in England and Wales. Despite the prevalence of Anglican churches, observance is very low within the Anglican denomination. Church attendance continues on a long, slow, steady decline, according to Church of England statistics. London is also home to sizable Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, and Jewish communities. Notable mosques include the East London Mosque in Tower Hamlets, which is allowed to give the Islamic call to prayer through loudspeakers, the London Central Mosque on the edge of Regent's Park, and the Bait al-Futuh of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Following the oil boom, increasing numbers of wealthy Middle Eastern Arab Muslims have based themselves around Mayfair, Kensington, and Knightsbridge in West London. There are large Bengali Muslim communities in the eastern boroughs of Tower Hamlets and Newham. Large Hindu communities are in the northwestern boroughs of Harrow and Brent, the latter of which hosts what was, until 2006, Europe's largest Hindu temple, Neasden Temple. London is also home to 44 Hindu temples, including the Baps Sri Swaminarayan Mandir London. There are Sikh communities in East and West London, particularly in Southall, home to one of the largest Sikh populations and the largest Sikh temple outside India. The majority of British Jews live in London, with significant Jewish communities in Stamford Hill, Stanmore, Golders Green, Finchley, Hampstead, Hendon and Edgware in North London. Bevis Marks Synagogue in the City of London is affiliated to London's historic Sephardic Jewish community. It is the only synagogue in Europe which has held regular services continuously for over 300 years. Stanmore and Cannons Park Synagogue has the largest membership of any single Orthodox synagogue in the whole of Europe, overtaking Ilford Synagogue, also in London, in 1998. The community set up the London Jewish Forum in 2006 in response to the growing significance of devolved London government. Accent. There are many accents traditionally associated with London. The most well-known of the London accents long ago acquired the Cockney label from London's East End, which is heard both in London itself, and across the wider South East England region more generally. The accent of a 21st-century Londoner varies widely. What is becoming more and more common amongst the under 30s, however, is some fusion of Cockney with a whole array of ethnic accents, in particular Caribbean, which form an accent labeled Multicultural London English, MLE. The other widely heard and spoken accent is RP, received pronunciation, in various forms, which can often be heard in the media and many of other traditional professions and beyond, although this accent is not limited to London and South East England, and can also be heard selectively throughout the whole UK amongst certain social groupings. Since the turn of the century, the Cockney dialect is less common in the East End and has migrated east to Havering and the county of Essex. Economy. London's gross regional product in 2016 was £408 billion, around a quarter of UK GDP, while the economy of the London metropolitan area, the largest in Europe, generates about 30% of the UK's GDP, or an estimated $669 billion in 2005. London has 5 major business districts: the City, Westminster, Canary Wharf, Camden and Islington, and Lambeth and Southwark. One way to get an idea of their relative importance is to look at relative amounts of office space. Greater London had 27 million square metre of office space in 2001, and the city contains the most space, with 8 million square metre of office space. London has some of the highest real estate prices in the world. London is the world's most expensive office market for the last 3 years according to World Property Journal, 2015, report. As of 2015, the residential property in London is worth $2.2 trillion, same value as that of Brazil's annual GDP. The city has the highest property prices of any European city according to the Office for National Statistics and the European Office of Statistics. On average, the price per square metre in central London is €24,252, April 2014. This is higher than the property prices in other G8 European capital cities: Berlin €3,306, Rome €6,188 and Paris €11,229. The City of London. London's finance industry is based in the City of London and Canary Wharf, the 2 major business districts in London. London is one of the preeminent financial centres of the world as the most important location for international finance. London took over as a major financial centre shortly after 1795 when the Dutch Republic collapsed before the Napoleonic armies. For many bankers established in Amsterdam, for example Hope, Baring, this was only time to move to London. The London financial elite was strengthened by a strong Jewish community from all over Europe capable of mastering the most sophisticated financial tools of the time. This unique concentration of talents accelerated the transition from the commercial revolution to the industrial revolution. By the end of the 19th century, Britain was the wealthiest of all nations, and London a leading financial centre. Still, as of 2016, London tops the world rankings on the Global Financial Centres Index, GFCI, and it ranked second in A.T. Kearney's 2018 Global Cities Index. London's largest industry is finance, and its financial exports make it a large contributor to the UK's balance of payments. Around 325,000 people were employed in financial services in London until mid-2007. London has over 480 overseas banks, more than any other city in the world. It is also the world's biggest currency trading centre, accounting for some 37% of the $5.1 trillion average daily volume, according to the BIS. Over 85%, 3.2 million, of the employed population of Greater London works in the services industries. Because of its prominent global role, London's economy had been affected by the financial crisis of 2007 to 2008. However, by 2010 the city has recovered, put in place new regulatory powers, proceeded to regain lost ground and re-established London's economic dominance. Along with professional services headquarters, the City of London is home to the Bank of England, London Stock Exchange, and Lloyd.